Welcome to The Wealthy Healthy, the podcast and blog dedicated to inspiring better mental, physical, and financial health. I am your host, Ricky Newton, and today's Financial Fridays episode will be the third and final installment in our three-part mini-series, looking at two popular personal finance books that present generally compelling yet largely conflicting strategies for building and achieving wealth. If you haven't yet read The Millionaire Next Door or The Millionaire Fastlane, I highly suggest visiting episodes 9 and 12 for my summary and a few thoughts on possible pros and cons of each approach. Today, we'll be taking a look at my own personal philosophy, which attempts to marry the overarching concepts of both of these seemingly at odds strategies. So, as we saw from The Millionaire Next Door, a majority of self-made, first-generation wealthy Americans built their fortunes on very similar principles: living a life of frugality and living below their means, saving more than they spend, and being very aware and in command of their spending. For these individuals, looking and living like an archetypal celebrity millionaire is not a priority, and instead, comfort and financial independence take precedence. And what we learned from The Millionaire Fastlane is that by taking a risk in trying to build a product or company or service that affects and touches as many lives as possible, it becomes realistically feasible to create an avenue for either growing a self-sustaining money tree or selling your empire early enough and for a sizable enough sum to live out the rest of your life living in intelligent and measured and well-prioritized luxury. But of course, as we talked about in previous episodes, and as you can gather from those two descriptions, there are definite pros and cons to each. The next door approach is inherently slower and inherently less lavish. The somewhat more materialistic and indulgent among us are going to be turned off by this proposition. It's indeed pretty unlikely to produce young millionaires, even if you have a high income and good investment decisions. But on the other hand, it is, in relative terms, a fairly safe and stable approach that, absolute worst case, builds you some extra savings and awareness for your good and bad financial habits. Best case, you play the game and you reap the rewards of playing in a manner that's very high probability. Of course, no path to financial independence or wealth is easy or guaranteed, but if we were to run an experiment with 100,000 identical people attempting various wealth-building strategies, I would be willing to bet that the next door approach almost certainly outperforms any other approach when it comes to the rate of reliably producing millionaires. The next door strategy is probably as close as you can get to guaranteeing yourself a comfortable retirement without being born into a rich family. And it acts as its own built-in safety net, which is going to appeal to anybody that's kind of risk averse. For anyone who is still completely put off by this, it puts you to sleep, it bores you, you'd rather be able to drive nice cars and wear designer clothes and still have enough saved up to live without working or to choose whatever you want for work. You may be licking your chops when it comes to thinking or reading or talking about the Fastlane approach. The Fastlane approach is inherently a major risk. You might start off barely making ends meet, or even more likely, you'll probably start off in debt trying to chase your dream. That dream might never materialize, either because you were in over your head or it required more work than you could or would like to commit, or maybe the idea itself, there was just no market need. If you have no savings to lean on and you do have a family to support, this could prove a pretty dangerous proposition. But on the other hand, the Fastlane approach is essentially the only way to become a young millionaire without being born into wealth or without exceptional ability in athletics or entertainment. So if you want more than anything to be a young guy or a young girl driving a supercar, wearing a hand-sewn Gucci mink fur coat, you might have to assess whether you can realistically give the Fastlane a shot. Recall that the Fastlane is not simply about appearing rich. Recall that even DeMarco himself squandered his first million, and he went from poor to rich and then basically back to poor because of really bad purchase decisions parlayed with terrible saving and terrible investing decisions. The Fastlane is about allowing yourself excessive financial freedom and independence at a young age. Because if you're 30 and sitting on $10 million, you can stand to spend a couple million and invest the rest, and you're still going to be rich enough to never work a 9 to 5 again. But something that both of these really popular finance books seems to ignore, something that they both kind of ignore, is the fact that one doesn't really need to eliminate the other in either of these approaches. Just because you're taking the next door path doesn't mean you're never going to come upon the chance to chase a fast lane dream. Or just because you're trying to live in the fast lane doesn't mean that you have to be completely reckless and in debt and sleeping with the Pop-Tart crumbs, as DeMarco puts it. For me, this is a more appealing approach to combine the two, as I'm risk averse, but very interested in entrepreneurship and creativity and financial independence. And I would be foolish to close myself off to opportunities to exercise and achieve more in those areas as soon as possible. This is why after I read both of these books multiple times each, I've sought to approach my finances with a mindset that incorporates both, which with no originality at all, I refer to it as the next door Fastlaner. This is a person who is prepared to ride or is riding the fast lane, but appears and will continue to appear on the surface like any other next door millionaire neighbor. No expensive cars, no McMansions, no Gucci coats, but one way or another, a lot of good financial health and perhaps wealth as well, for the purpose of fulfillment and happiness, a few of the pillars of good mental, emotional, and physical health right there. There are a few reasons. This approach, to me, it appeals a little bit more than either one or the other approach. First, it helps mitigate risk. I'm somewhat risk averse. Not super risk averse, but risk averse for sure. I'm not a gambler. I won't even bet hard on something where I feel really, really knowledgeable. I personally formulate most of my life around next door principles of frugality and saving intelligently, which I take to the extent of saving around 20 to 50% of my post-tax earnings, depending on how things are going at that particular time. This helps me stay on the path to building financial independence at a faster pace. If you're curious about the math behind financial independence, definitely revisit episode 2 of this podcast. Second, another reason here is that the intersection of the two strategies appeals to me because with aggressive and responsible savings and low lifestyle overhead, I place myself in a better position to take advantage of potential fast lane opportunities in the future should they appear or should I create them. I'll admit that there's a weird form of survivorship bias here. I'm young, I have no kids, I'm not married, I don't own property, and I've not yet achieved any mathematically real form of financial independence. However, in a few years, I should have an idea, if I do have an idea for a business rather, or if I'm presented with an intriguing one by someone else. I mean, a lot of my friends are in computer programming. It's possible that they come up with something. I might have enough saved in those situations to where I'm partially financially independent, and that can allow me to potentially earn much, much less for several years without worrying about food or rent. So if the right opportunity comes up, I could pursue that potential opportunity for fast lane track, for ending up on that fast lane by working fewer hours and changing careers to something less demanding, or just leave my primary career altogether safely. And if it didn't work out, sure, it would be a bummer, and I've depleted some of those savings undoubtedly, but it wouldn't leave me in a state of complete financial ruin. And with a little bit of due diligence and a decent economy and a good job market, I could probably fall back into a primary career in some capacity with some success, right? So if it did work out then, I would be glad for having saved all those years prior, because without that buffer, it's unlikely that I would ever overcome the emotional hurdle of jumping into a really risky proposition. There are also two approaches to take even within the single approach, which I think of as kind of active or passive. So to be an active next door fast laner would be to maintain focus on the primary career while living the next door lifestyle of frugality and investing. So you're essentially trying to create and pursue opportunities supplementary to your primary career. So this could mean spending nights and weekends working on a product or service intentionally, putting together websites that can become passive income streams, or starting an Amazon business, things like that. Active pursuit can also include making a concerted effort to network with entrepreneurs and future entrepreneurs to be in a position to, if you choose, to be an early employee or an executive in a new company that you feel has a pretty high ceiling. Being a passive Nextdoor Fastlaner, on the other hand, looks a little bit more like regular Nextdoor living, but the point is that you're still keeping a very, very close ear with some intention to potential Fastlane opportunities. Many Nextdoor types are not ever keeping options open or keeping a finger on the pulse. Many entrepreneurs I know work in what people would think of as dull, normal jobs. And they work these jobs their entire lives with no interest or attempt at a fast lane type of option. These individuals have done usually incredible jobs building wealth, but they tend to fit more in line with that straight up millionaire next door approach of steady, smart saving. A passive approach to Nextdoor fastlaning could take form in a couple of ways. One example might be simply talking to friends who might be in a better position to create a product than you are. In my own case, perhaps because I live in the Silicon Valley, I happen to have a lot of close friends who are software engineers, as I mentioned before. Of course, I'm not saying I made friends with these people because they're software engineers, but the fact that they are places them in a stronger position potentially to independently bring a technological idea to life, whether this is a website or an app or an actual type of software or something like that. But by having these people in my network, I'm not actively doing anything to pursue Fastlane opportunities. I'm not creating anything, but I'm at least marginally increasing my chances of being aware and having my finger on that pulse of anything that those people in my network might build. And that could eventually turn into a Fastlane opportunity for me and for them, of course. So other passive examples would be reading articles about certain markets or trying to think of unique solutions or just involving yourself in projects that have some chance at financial upside, even if that chance is small and even if the upside is not really the goal. For example, maybe you upload videos to YouTube because you just like it. You just like making videos and sharing some particular type of content. Most people posting videos online in this manner aren't treating it like an early stage business that's going to become a fruit-bearing money tree at some point. Most are doing it just for fun. This might be you, just uploading videos for fun because it's your hobby. I used to do this all the time. But by simply doing something extra, you are increasing your probability, even if it's really small, of stumbling upon a potential Fastlane opportunity. There's a lot of people who, I know one that comes to mind is Marcus Brownlee. I think it's MKBHD on YouTube. He does these really popular, I think he's younger than I am. He's like 21, and he does these tech review videos. And early on, he was just uploading videos because he liked them and he liked to review new gadgets and things of that nature. But over time, he built a following, and that ad revenue from people watching his videos turned into potential leads for the products that he was actually reviewing. So then he does affiliate links and things like that. And now all of a sudden you've got this guy who, just because he was uploading good quality videos consistently for a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years into that, now he's probably making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And all he has to do to earn that is essentially just make a review video once every week or two. So again, this is something that I don't think he started it with the goal in mind of turning this into his fast lane, his fruit-bearing money tree, but that is what it became for him, and that would be sort of the passive approach of you're not pursuing it for the fast lane purpose, but you're doing things that create a situation where you could stumble into it. I hope that you've been able to gain something from this 3-part episode millionaire series that we've done here on the podcast. So with all of that information, think about your lifestyle now and think about your ideal lifestyle later, and try to strike whatever balance of present day spending and future stability suits your desires and your values and your health and your wealth best. And of course, you have to work hard to apply whichever sets of strategies suit those ideals and your own personal skills, find out what suits all of that best. But perhaps you take a totally different approach than I do in trying to combine the two. There's a lot of ways to live your life, which in my opinion, it's one of the most beautiful things about living a life. You can do whatever you want with it, so many different ways to do it, and so many of them are right. But in my opinion, again, set yourself up to be able to live in a context that maximizes your own personal happiness and comfort and the happiness and comfort of your family as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. As always, feel free to share your thoughts, your praise, your criticism. It all serves to make the show better. And of course, be sure to check out the blog and other content on thewealthyhealthy.co and subscribe to whichever medium you prefer. And later. Later.